I was late for the most important meeting of my life finally, meeting my fiancé's reclusive, notoriously difficult billionaire father. On the way, I stopped to give my only lunch and my expensive cashmere scarf to a shivering homeless man on a park bench. When I walked, flustered and late, into the grand dining room of the mansion, I froze. The same homeless man I had just helped was sitting at the head of the table. Before we get into it, tell me, where are you watching this story from? Share your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're following our channel so we can keep bringing you more juicy stories. The invitation, when it came, wasn't really an invitation at all. It was a summons, delivered by email through a law firm. It read more like a court order than a dinner request. Mr. Arthur Sterling requests the presence of his son, Mr. David Sterling, and his companion, Ms. Ava Peters, for a formal dinner at his private residence. It was the meeting David had been hoping for and dreading for the 2 years we had been together. His father was more myth than man. A ghost. A legend in the financial world. He had built a multi-billion-dollar empire from nothing, then vanished from public life a decade ago, retreating into the shadows of his sprawling estate. He was brilliant, eccentric, and famously difficult. He had disowned his older son for marrying a woman he considered unworthy. Now, it was my turn to be judged. The week leading up to the dinner was a masterclass in anxiety. David, usually so calm and confident, was a wreck. "Ava, you don't get it," he kept saying, pacing the apartment. "This isn't normal, meet the parents. My father doesn't do normal. This is a test. Everything with him is a test. Our entire future, our wedding, my place in the company, it all depends on him approving of you." He gave me a list of rules, like a survival guide through a minefield. Don't talk about your job at the nonprofit. He thinks charity is weakness. Don't mention your parents' modest background. Stick to safe topics: art, history, economics. Wear the navy blue dress he bought me. Wear the cashmere scarf. Appearances matter. And above all else, don't be late. Tardiness, David warned, eyes wide, is to him the mark of a disordered mind. If you're late, you fail. That morning I felt like I was preparing for an audition instead of meeting my future father-in-law. I ironed the dress, straightened the scarf, and rehearsed polite, acceptable conversation in the mirror. My stomach was in knots, but I was so focused on being flawless, I nearly forgot how to be human. The gates opened slowly, revealing a mansion that didn't look real: columns, fountains, marble everywhere. Even the driveway seemed polished. David's father was waiting at the entrance. He didn't smile, didn't even extend a hand at first, just scanned me up and down like I was a resume. "You're late," he said. I panic-checked my watch. We were 10 minutes early. But David squeezed my hand under the table later and whispered, "He always says that. It's part of the game." Inside, the dining room looked like a throne room. Chandeliers, portraits of ancestors, a table so long I felt like a guest at a royal court. He sat at the head, David on one side, me on the other. And then it began. The first course was served in silence, crystal glasses, silver spoons, food arranged like art. Then his father leaned back, his voice calm but heavy. "So, tell me, what makes you think you belong here?" My throat tightened. Every eye was on me. The servants, the portraits on the wall, even David. I took a breath. "Because I'm not here for wealth. I'm here for your son." The room froze. His father raised an eyebrow, as if amused, as if waiting for me to stumble. "You think love is enough?" he asked. "Yes," I said, my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. David squeezed my hand beneath the table again. That one small gesture gave me the courage to hold his father's gaze. The test had begun. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his father's lips, though his eyes stayed sharp as blades. "Love," he said slowly, "is a fragile currency. It devalues quickly when tested by time, pressure, or power. I've seen empires fall because men believed in it. He snapped his fingers. Another course was served this time, rare steak dripping red. The air in the room grew heavier. "Tell me, Miss Peters," he continued, "what have you sacrificed for my son? What pain have you endured that proves your love is more than words?" I swallowed hard, knowing this was no casual question, it was an interrogation. A trap. But if I hesitated, he'd see weakness. "I've given him my loyalty when it cost me friendships," I replied. "I've chosen him over security, over certainty, over comfort. And I'd do it again." The silence stretched. Finally, his father chuckled, not warmly, but with something like respect. The game was far from over. His father leaned forward, elbows resting on the polished oak table. The candlelight caught the sharp lines of his face. "Sacrifice is admirable," he said, "but loyalty can crumble when temptation enters the room." He gestured, and a servant appeared, placing a black velvet box in front of me. My pulse quickened. "Open it," he ordered. I lifted the lid. Inside was a diamond necklace so brilliant it seemed to glow on its own, each stone cut to perfection. "This," he said, "is worth more than most people will see in 10 lifetimes. If you accept it, it comes with a condition. Walk away from David tonight. No explanations, no goodbyes, just leave. The driver will take you anywhere you want." David's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. His father's eyes bored into mine, waiting for my decision. The air felt razor thin. My choice would define everything. I stared at the necklace, its fire catching every flicker of candlelight. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. My fingers brushed the velvet edge of the box. Then I shut it firmly. "I'm not for sale," I said, my voice steady. "And neither is my love for your son." The words echoed in the silence. David's hand trembled against mine, but his grip never loosened. His father studied me, unblinking. Then slowly he waved the servant away. The box disappeared as quickly as it had come. "Interesting," he murmured, leaning back. "Most would have taken it. Some even convinced themselves it was noble." For the first time, I caught something in his eyes that looked less like judgment and more like curiosity. But I knew better than to believe the test was over. The plates were cleared, and the next course never came. Instead, his father rose from his chair with a slow, deliberate grace. "Walk with me," he commanded. David stood, but his father raised a hand. "No, just her." My stomach tightened, but I followed. The corridors of the mansion stretched endlessly, lined with portraits of men who looked just like him, each one staring down with cold, unyielding eyes. Finally, we entered a library that smelled of old leather and secrets. He shut the heavy door behind us. "This family," he began, "was built on strength, on decisions that others feared to make. Tell me, Ava, do you have that kind of strength? Or are you only brave when my son is beside you?" His gaze pinned me like a hawk circling prey. This was no longer just about love. It was about proving who I was without David. The fire crackled in the massive stone fireplace, shadows dancing across the shelves of ancient books. His father stood tall, hands clasped behind his back, his presence filling the room. He turned to me, his voice low and deliberate. "Every person has a breaking point. Power, fear, lost something always makes them bend. Tell me, Ava, what is yours?" I felt the weight of the question pressing against my chest. He wasn't asking out of curiosity. He wanted to find the crack in me, the weakness he could expose. I met his gaze. I break when I see people I love suffer, but I don't run from it. I fight through it. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, with the faintest hint of a smile, he poured 2 glasses of brandy, handing one to me. "Brave words," he said. "Let's see if you can live up to them." The test wasn't over. It had only just begun. He sipped his brandy, eyes never leaving mine. Then he set the glass down with a sharp click against the mahogany desk. "Strength," he said, "is not proven in words. It is proven when your choices cost you something real." He opened a drawer and pulled out a thin folder, sliding it across to me. Inside were photographs of me, my old apartment, the friends I had left behind, even a job offer I once turned down to stay with David. "I know everything," he said coldly. "Every compromise you've made, every weakness you've tried to bury." My breath caught. He wasn't testing me anymore, he was dissecting me. "If you walk away now," he continued, "I will ensure you never struggle again. A career, wealth, freedom, everything you gave up restored. All it costs is my son." The fire popped loudly, like punctuation to his cruel bargain. I closed the folder and looked up, heart steady. "Then I'll keep my so-called weaknesses, because they're the proof I chose love over convenience." For the first time, his expression faltered. The silence in the library was thick, almost suffocating. His father's eyes narrowed, studying me as though he could peel away every layer of my soul. Then he spoke, softer this time. "Do you even know what it means to stand beside my son? To bear the weight of this family's name? It is not romance. It is war. Everyone will want a piece of you, your dignity, your loyalty, your peace. Can you survive that?" He stepped closer, his voice now a blade. "I buried my wife because she wasn't strong enough. She loved me. Yes, but love couldn't save her from the pressure of this life. Tell me, Ava, do you want to end the same way?" My breath hitched, but I didn't flinch. "I don't want to be her. I want to be me. And I will fight for David with everything I have, even if it means standing alone." For the first time, his father's gaze softened. Just a fraction. Just enough to reveal that beneath all the steel and fire, there was grief. The firelight flickered, painting his face in shadows. For the first time, I saw not just a powerful man, but a father haunted by loss. He set his glass down slowly and asked, almost in a whisper, "If David were to lose everything tomorrow, his wealth, his name, even his health, would you still stand beside him? Or would you walk away once the shine was gone?" The question cut deeper than any before. This wasn't about diamonds or deals. It was about the core of who I was. I thought of David's laughter, his quiet strength, the way he reached for my hand when no one was watching. None of that was built on wealth. None of it could be bought. "Yes," I said firmly. "If he lost it all, I would still choose him, because I didn't fall in love with the sterling empire. I fell in love with David." For a long moment, his father said nothing. Then he closed his eyes, as if weighing my words against memories I could never know. The storm outside rattled the windows, but inside the library, something shifted. His eyes opened again, sharp but no longer hostile. He circled slowly around the room, each footstep echoing against the marble floor. "You speak with conviction," he said, "but conviction is cheap when untested. Words mean nothing until life crushes them." He stopped in front of a tall window, the storm raging outside. Then he turned back to me. "Tonight you faced questions, but now I'll give you something greater responsibility." From the desk, he pulled out a sealed envelope stamped with the sterling crest. He slid it toward me, his gaze unrelenting. "Inside this are details of a decision that will affect not just David, but hundreds of people tied to this family. If you open it, you must choose on his behalf. If you refuse, you admit you are not ready to stand at his side." My pulse quickened. This wasn't just a test of love anymore. It was a test of power. I placed my hand on the envelope, feeling its weight. Everything about the future seemed to hang in that single choice. My fingers trembled slightly as I broke the seal. Inside, a single sheet of paper weighted stark, heavy with consequence. It was a contract, a business deal. On one side, hundreds of employees would keep their jobs, that David's inheritance would shrink to almost nothing. On the other, profits would soar, but entire families would be left with nothing. It wasn't numbers on a page, it was lives. And his father had placed the decision in my hands. I looked up at him. He stood perfectly still, eyes locked on me, waiting to see what kind of woman I really was. The weight of the choice pressed down like a stone. Wealth or humanity? Power or principle? I signed the line that saved the workers. Sliding the paper back across the desk, I met his gaze. David doesn't need billions to be a man worth standing beside. But people need hope. I won't destroy them to protect an empire. For a long, tense silence, his father said nothing. Then, he leaned back and for the first time, truly smiled. The smile was faint, but it transformed his face. For the first time, Arthur Sterling looked less like a judge and more like a father. He tapped the signed paper with one finger. Interesting. You chose the harder path. Most would have chosen the money. Even my own blood once did. His gaze lingered on me, sharp but softer now. Perhaps you are not as ordinary as I feared. The heavy door creaked open and David stepped inside, worry etched across his face. His father didn't look at him, his eyes stayed on me. She made her choice, he said simply. And for the first time in years, I see someone willing to stand for something greater than themselves. David slipped an arm around me, his relief unmistakable. Arthur Sterling raised his glass once more, but this time, it was not in challenge, it was an acknowledgement. The storm outside had not ended, but inside the Sterling mansion, something had shifted forever. We returned to the dining room. The long tables still glowed under golden light, though the food had gone cold. Servants moved silently, resetting places as though nothing had happened. But everything had changed. Arthur Sterling took his seat at the head, and for the first time, he gestured for me to sit directly beside him. Not across the table, not at a distance, but close. David looked at me astonished. I felt his pride, his quiet gratitude, in the way his hand brushed against mine. Arthur raised his glass. His voice carried authority, but this time it held no edge. To strength, he said. Not the strength of wealth or fear, but of choice. Crystal clinked softly as we joined him. In that moment, I realized the test was never about impressing him. It was about proving to myself that I belonged, not because of his approval, but because I had stood firm in who I was. The battle was over, but the bond it forged would last far longer than a single stormy night. The night drew to a close, the storm outside finally breaking into calm. The mansion felt different, now less like a fortress, more like a place where history had been rewritten. Arthur Sterling rose from his chair, his towering figure casting a long shadow across the marble floor. For the first time, he looked at David not as a son who might fail him, but as a man who had chosen well. Then his gaze shifted to me. You may not carry the Sterling name yet, he said quietly, but tonight, you've carried its weight. And you did not falter. The words struck deeper than any gift could. It wasn't approval, it was acceptance. David's fingers intertwined with mine, warm and steady. I realized then that this dinner, this trial, had never been just a test of love. It was a crucible, burning away doubt, leaving behind something unbreakable. As we left the great hall together, the storm clouds parted, and moonlight spilled across the estate. The night had tested us, but we walked out not as strangers seeking validation, but as a family, finally beginning.